Hello and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses. It is a Wednesday, which means it is time for Foxes Den. You might be wondering, why is there an empty space? Well, it's because we will be joined by a fourth member very soon. He is just always late or just on time, one of the two. Today we've got a fresh face on Foxes Den. It's Ant. Josh, unfortunately, is feeling a bit poorly, so I messaged Ant at last minute, and thankfully he saved us. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks, mate. Cheers for having me on.
Nah, much appreciated, mate. Glad to have you. Absolutely. Anil, what's going on, mate? How are you doing?
I got to be honest with you, Lux. I think today is a bit of a dark day, not necessarily for football. This is one of the days where you need the blue tinted glasses to be able to see the magic that's coming through. Look, for me, I'm all right. I've actually had one of those mental days where, I keep texting you saying I'm probably going to be 1 minute late. You might have heard I had a Twitter Spaces on just before I joined this channel, so a busy one. But yeah, obviously we won't mention the other subject, but I think something other than football is having a big impact on the world today.
Yeah. Probably best to avoid politics, aren't we?
Yeah. Let's dodge that right away.
One day, well, I'm sure for some reason it will come up on the channel, but not today. Not today. Right. Look, walk of shame. Here he is. Look at this. You're always just on time, and you thought, you know what, today I'll just be late. Why not?
I got to start making a habit of this, man. Honestly,
it's all good, mate. At least you're here now. How are you doing today?
I'm all good, man. I'm all good. It should be interesting. Well, from the weekend and then heading into this week, so we'll see how it all pans out, really. But yeah, hope you guys are doing well.
All good here, mate. Thank you. So yeah, mate. Well, I'm gonna come to you first, Ragsy. Obviously, we're not going to talk about US politics. I don't know if you missed that at the start, but yeah, we're not going to talk about that. We are going to talk about Leicester City's. Yeah. We're going to talk about Leicester City's upcoming game, of course, which is Manchester United. Now, we played them only a week ago today. That's why Foxes Den was on last Wednesday. And here we are again, about to play them in the Premier League. What are your initial thoughts for this one, Ragsy? Instead of leaving it open-ended, I'll ask you this. How big of a game is this for Leicester City and for Steve Cooper?
It should be big. It should be a real opportunity, if I'm being honest with you, because you move past, of course, when you look at Manchester United and you think of the name and they're the biggest club in the country, but if you go past the name and right now they're 13th, 12th, 13th, for they're low down in the upper echelons of the mid-table, lower to mid-table. So they're generally a poor side with a lot of talent that they've invested in. And you were expecting that, okay, Ten Hag leaves, there should be a bit of a bounce amongst the squad. And there was, in terms of energy and work rate and actually being on board and being together as a unit, and they could go out there and express themselves. But the quality in terms of the final third and structure, it's just very poor. So we have ways in which, when we do sort of manage to piece anything together to go forwards, we can exploit that. But will we? I mean, if they're unpredictable, what are we then? We're just we don't even know whether we can turn up. We can't even put in a consistent 45-minute performance at this rate. So I don't really know what to make of this. If we actually do turn up and be at some sort of consistent level, have a solid approach into it, then yeah, I think we could get a result out of it. But honestly, it really just depends on what turns up on the day and what sort of a plan and approach Cooper can set up with, and whether the players can actually bring the quality on the day is I'm really unsure on it at the minute.
Well, yeah, I think that's fair, mate. I mean, Ant, as I said, we played them a week ago. And for me, whenever you play a team that has just sat their manager, it can be a bit of a red herring on how they perform. A bit of weights lifted off their shoulders, I suppose, from the manager. And especially that it was in the cup and we had a mixed match of players, and they had quite a strong team, to be fair. So, how much do you buy into what you saw of them last week and what you saw of us? Do you think it'll be a completely different game, or do you think it will be quite similar?
I don't think you can look into that at all, because our team was totally different. And it's going to sound strange because I know we conceded 5 goals. I wasn't particularly impressed by United in terms of how much I expected to see sort of a bounce. And as you say, when a manager goes, you typically get that bounce. And I thought a lot of their goals, we caused our own issue. It wasn't particularly them doing anything fantastic. So, again, I wouldn't look into it too much, but could it be almost that it's Ruud's last game is a bigger bounce in his first game, so to speak? But it's one of those that you take away the name Man United and you just look at a team that's 2 points above us. It's a mindset that we should be heading into the game with of like there's absolutely nothing to fear, this, that, and the other. But even when we've been at our best at Old Trafford, we've struggled and we haven't done particularly well. So I don't know. It's what mindset do we go into it with? Do we go into it? We're going to Old Trafford. It's the biggest club in the world, and do we freeze on the stage, or do we go there fearless, absolutely have a go? And the thing is, we could go there, have a go, and still end up losing because they do have some world-class players. But I think it's one of those that if we approach the game in the right way, then there's absolutely no reason that we can't go and get at least a point from it.
Yeah, I mean, you asked a good question a second ago, Ant. So I'll ask it to Anil. Could there be a bigger bounce? Van Nistelrooy's last game. They know that the new manager is just about to come in. Could that be an opportunity for them to, overperform or perform really well to try and impress the new boss coming in? Or do you think the bounce might have worn off a little bit by now?
It's very hard to say, isn't it? I think on paper they should be running hard, but the funny thing with this Manchester United team is they've got a lot of players that just don't do that. They've definitely made this mistake of giving certain players ridiculous wages. And then I think you're seeing this with Mbappe at Real Madrid at the moment. It's like when you think you've made it, you stop doing the basics, and that can cause you problems. And I think Ant was bang on the money to say they didn't really look that good like when we played them last time, even though they scored 5 past us. I will say that if you look at the underlying stats, we were due a bit of a battering at some point. But in some ways, I was kind of glad that we had it in a game that was a bit irrelevant for us. So will they get that jammy again? I mean, no, Man United, they might do. That's the problem. But I think on paper, we shouldn't really be too scared of them. I mean, I've also, I don't know if you guys saw Sporting beat Man City in the Champions League. And at the end of the game, all their players were properly throwing up Amorim, like even though he was leaving. In fact, even the fans, a lot of fans really upset because he's leaving not even halfway through the season. But they had this huge tifo for him. So I think that really shows you something. So he's got that effect. But the good news is that the players don't know him yet. So I'm not sure. I don't know. To be honest with you, I think the real reason that Man United have sacked so many managers is that they got a really bad dressing room culture. And I'm not sure that they will do that much running. I think that's why they need a new manager. So I agree with what Dawn said there. I don't see why we can't go there and get a point. Need to keep our defense tight. Yet cut out those stupid mistakes. I think we've got a chance.
Absolutely. But just off topic, did you see the Gary Cottrell, the journalist, demand that Anne-Marie spoke in English in the sporting press conference? Yeah, proper.
Didn't he do something similar though when Ten Hag signed for United, like chasing him down the road or something like that? Proper.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, he does come across of a little bit of a knob, but I saw him also bragging that Jose Mourinho, the same reporter, Jose Mourinho invited him to dinner in a press conference, like bragging about, and I'm like, mate, come on, you've got, you know what I mean? Just talk about the football, mate. Okay, well, obviously going on to the game, last weekend against Ipswich, there were some surprises in the team selection. An hour and 15 minutes before kickoff, a few of us were surprised from some of the players that were in there. But Ragsy, what do you want to see this weekend? Are there any changes you would make to that lineup, that starting 11 we saw? People have been talking for the last few days now, and rightly so, about Jordan Ayew, about Boubacar Samari. Could any of these players start the game over maybe Abdul Fattah or Wilfred Ndidi? What do you want to see from the team selection?
Well, Ayew, listen, I mean, I was one to sort of go on his back straight away over this sort of transfer. But I'll tell you what, I'll prove myself when I'm wrong, and I'll happily own up to that. Where he's really become a huge impact off the bench. I think that's the thing with Ayew. If if you manage it in bursts, where you just throw him in there, he's right in the eye of the storm, and he can just hold up play, go and link up with other players, like what you saw with Jamie as well, like just a bit of a linchpin in the final third, and having that right towards the end of the game when oppositions are tiring is, I think, when he's going to be more threatening. So no, I wouldn't start him and have him for a whole 90 minutes, because then eventually like it kind of wears off thin and you're not really going to get that impact from him when it matters. And I think like he's kind of fulfilling that sort of like late sub sort of like impact off the bench. So I'd still keep him on the bench. That's kind of his remit for me. I'd still want to see the width coming out wide from Mavididi and Fatui. I think like people just need to be a bit realistic when it comes to two wingers not playing in the Premier League. They're going to have bits and spells. Like, you know, the idea is still the same. The threat's still there. It's just a case of like, you just need them to sort of like spruce up a bit of quality, and that will come with time, unfortunately. So it's, there'll be a need to be patient, which we're not usually are, but we'll have to try to be. So, Samari, though, I would consider him, because not for the sake that indeed he's been poor, because I actually think he's done pretty well, and I do see his sort of like impact from headed clearances, and he's getting involved more in a lot of duels, and I wasn't really seeing that like the past couple of seasons as well. I thought his work rate and ethic was like way off compared to what he usually was under his prime. So, but like that's really stepped up, and that has been a massive help. It's just that Samari's run, like in the build up and just brushing two players alongside, his drive, his ball control, his dribbling, his just intent to go forwards, you're not getting that from Ndidi. And I think if we're going to use Enzo's system, he's a lot more suited to being in the 8 than Ndidi is, considering his attributes. So I'd like to see him start, especially in United as well, where like he'd be more likely up for it and geared and ready to sort of prove a point. And I think it could be something that we could be lacking. So I would consider that change.
Well, talking about Samari and Nil. I mean, I want to ask you this because Chester Leicester said it, and it's what a lot of Leicester fans are thinking, and I think every Leicester fan is like, okay, yeah, we really want Samari to be good, but then in the back of our mind, we see this, which is so true. It's been a mistake that we've made far too many times. What's your take on it all, Anil? Do you think maybe it is too soon to be sold on Samari's last two performances and say, you know what, yes, he deserves a chance? Do you think he should have to earn a bit more, do a bit more and earn that place?
I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, spoilers, but we've got a video coming out on Blue Tinted Glasses tomorrow, which is the match preview, and there's going to be a little bit about Samari as why you might go for him. The thing is, I think it kind of depends on like what your coaching philosophy is, right? Do you go for like tried and trusted, or do you go more for players in form? And actually, I think unpopular take here, but I think Steve Cooper has shown that he tends to go more for players in form than just going for tried and trusted. Maybe he started with tried and trusted, but I think to be fair to him, like Justin's been pretty poor for a few games, takes him out of the team. Okoli had a bad performance, took him out of the team. Mavididi comes on and does really good, come into the team. So if you're going by that logic, you could definitely make the argument that Ndidi has been good, but he hasn't been as good in the last couple of games. And yet Samari, in his games that he's come on, has been good. So I think if you're going to pick it on form, there's a real strength to be saying that. Now, I actually do agree with Chester that it is a mistake we've made many times before, but it could be last chance saloon. And I think, whilst I think we could get a point against Man United, given that I think we've only ever beaten them once there in like 20 years or something like that, it's a bit of free hit all over it. So maybe it is worth trying something there. And look, I don't think we've ever seen Samari tracking back like that and aggressively trying to win the ball back. If he was doing that for his entire career, I don't think it would have gone anywhere near as badly for him. So there's that. Yeah. And also, I just think the way that Man United play, one of their big things why Ten Hag has got sacked is they leave a big gap between their midfield and their defenders when they push up on the transition. So the players that do really well against them are people who are good at progressing the ball, and specifically people who can progress the ball by dribbling. Right now, we've already got one really good player at that, which is Buonanotte. But of the two, if you had to pick Ndidi or Samari, who's better at doing that? It's probably Samari. So, well, that's a bit harsh, but he'd probably do all right for them. But, you know, I think if there was a game as well that would suit his style, and you got to remember when we played Manchester United last time around, Samari was in the team, and he again, I think, was one of the better performers there. So there's lots of arguments for it. I wouldn't feel strongly either way, but why not? I think he's worth a go. And, you know, you can always take him off after 45, 60. I mean, you could compare it to, let's say, Everton. Do you remember when we played Everton? Bilal came into the team for the first time and he was really poor. And look, that was just getting used to it. So you could say we wasted a half, but you know unless you try these players. So, yeah, I think indeed he's a bit off form. I would personally give him a shot, but I'm not too bothered if he doesn't play.
Yeah, I mean, and some thoughts on Samari before we get onto Ayew, a bit more Samari, because I think, you know, Ndidi at one stage was undroppable. If you looked at all the data and even just the like assists, I mean, you can go off that, I suppose, and say he's contributing goals. But do you think it is time for maybe a little mix up in midfield?
Yeah, because if he's not going to get a chance now, he never is. After the 2 games that he's put in and the impact he is, and ultimately we're going to be paying his wages for the next 2 years anyway. So it's best for everyone if we can get the player out of him that is there. And I was saying this yesterday, but I think it's more of a Leicester issue than it is a Samari issue, because you look everywhere else he has been, he's done well. It's just Leicester that he hasn't got an output, haven't got an output from him.
Or is it the country? Is it the league? Is it the football? Is it the style of football? Maybe
it could, but I don't think. I think that there's a bigger emphasis on like how different the leagues are than there actually is in reality. So, like the Spanish league, I think, yeah, it is probably a little bit slower and a little bit more technical. But I think the French league is as physical as the Premier League, and like that's why I think so many players come over from France and do very well very quickly and don't take a huge amount of settling in period.
Ragsy, moving on to Ayew specifically now. I mean, Georgie says he loves the game versus United, scored plenty against them, to be fair, in his Palace days. Something tickled you, Ant? Did I say something funny, mate?
No, not you, mate, not you.
Oh. All right, no worries. But yeah, I mean, Ragsy, I was on a stream last night with Chris LTID, which I never thought I would ever go on, but I did, and it was good. And we spoke about Ayew a bit, and you know, Palace fans, they praised him. They praised him so much. They were gutted to see him leave. The complete opposite with Edouard, but with Ayew, you know, that they were sad to see him leave. And now, do you see why? Because I think he's going to go down as like a cult hero at Leicester City. I think that's what's going to happen.
I dare to say it. I think you might be right. It could be looking that way at this rate, because I think, yeah, the best way to sort of judge, like, I always, for any sort of player coming into the club, like the initial thought that I always sort of look to, and I know it's like a little sort of like glimpse that you're looking at, but social media and just general fans' reaction from the club that's actually sending the player to us. And if they're going like, oh no, I don't want to lose him and stuff, and like it was a case of Dover Reed, I know he hasn't really settled into the team yet or anything, and hasn't really set it alight at all. But with Ayew, and it was a similar sort of case, but there is a method to the madness there with him. Like he does, like really sort of put himself about there as a focal point, and like with losing Iheanacho as well, he sort of also like drifted into the centre and was that focal point for us. So like if we needed any long balls or just threaded through when he's up against a defender and tight to him, and you just need someone just to hold up the ball for a bit until other players like run up the pitch to get themselves into play. Like he was that sort of linchpin, and like sort of like managed to replace that role with Ayew coming in, and he has a good sense about it. Like to be fair, he does, even though like the conviction of his shooting isn't as like sound as it usually is like half the time, but like he's doing the right things in the build up. So it is weird, like, yeah, you know, he is putting in the work. I do like the endeavor there. I do rate it from him. So it will be a key player coming this season. So actually, like, and even though I wrote it off, I was like, you know what, it's actually coming to fruition a bit. So fair play to him. Fair play to him.
I think you say about writing him off though, Rags. I think a lot of it, you know, is down to the price tag, because I think there were concerns at £8 million, and it's gonna end up the same with. I mean, it was the same with Skip, and you know, I don't think Skip's had an awful start. He's obviously not played as much as a £25 million player should do for us, but that again is probably the price tag with that one. But Anil, I hate to do this. I am going to move it over to the manager a little bit here. And I'm going to go to a comment that somebody brought up. One of the first comments in the stream. It was Chester. He said, "Hi guys, 10 games, no progress. Lopetegui." No, not Lopetegui. But I've heard a rumor, guys. Again, I've been told lots of rumors in the past, and they've all been BS. So it could be BS. But I've heard a rumor that if we lose, he could be gone over the international break. That's the rumor I've heard. Now, I don't really believe it too much because it seems a bit harsh to lose against Man United and you're gone. But Anil, do you think it might be the perfect time to make the change with an international break and still over half the season to go?
Yeah, I mean that is the time to do it. So yeah, international break's always the one, right? And I would say the last time we had a big international break, of course, was the World Cup at that point, the season that we got relegated. That's probably when we should have made the managerial change then. So maybe it would be something that we would listen to or try and learn from our mistakes in terms of doing that. But I know it's an odd one though, because we love this term papering over the cracks, and it's like the position in the table looks pretty good. Yeah, 5 points clear of relegation after 10 games. If you'd have said that to us at the start of the season, everyone's signing up for that, right? You think, wow, we must have been pretty good to have done that. But it is more by hook and crook, isn't it, than doing it. So I don't know. I mean, I would find it hard to believe that would happen. But if there has been dressing room falling out or something like that, maybe if someone's free. The one big thing is I'm pretty sure now that Potter's Chelsea paycheck has finally come to an end. Because I believe if you look at when he got sacked and everything like that, so that could be I think if someone's going to be a point, it's going to be him. And, teams will be looking. The only reason you do it, right, is who's going to get him first. Because it's either him or David Moyes, isn't it? I don't think we want David Moyes here, even though maybe he would take us up. So don't know what to make of it, maybe. But actually, to be honest with you, the Lopetegui one is the person that was raised there. Isn't that a good example of like the West Ham fans were like, saying, "Oh, it's time for Moyes to go." They got rid of him, and I don't know, they look much worse this season so far.
Go on, up, mate. You may as well answer his question. Would you take Claude Puel back?
No.
No.
It's like short and sweet. No. But
no. I think Alice is probably doing that out of jest a little bit. But I mean, who is there then? Anil just mentioned Potter, Moyes. Do we really go back over Potter again? Go from again? We seem a bit obsessed with that one. And again, there's been many rumors on why he never came. One rumor is it's because of Rudkin, and if that's the case, then that's not going to have been resolved. So, who would you want to see if hypothetically Leicester sacks Cooper this break?
Thing is, it's like saying who is there. Every manager, even if they're in a club, has got a price to get them out of it. We saw that with Brendan Rodgers. We've seen that, obviously different scale, but Man United taking Sporting Lisbon's manager. If you put money on the table, managers are there and available. I'd want Carlos Corberán if we could get anyone. I think he would have been a much more natural transition from Enzo Maresca. But
yeah, he would have got the pressing style a lot more. He could have been able to make the tweaks he sort of learnt from his sort of ideologies to Bielsa. So I think there could have been a bit of meddling, mixing in there. He would have been a lot more understanding of Enzo's ideas and would have geared to the players a lot more. So I think
he was on the list, Ragsy. He was on the short list allegedly. And I wanted him, and I think you might have wanted him at the time, if I remember back. But he's winless since September. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that should rule him out, but do you think it might rule him out? Maybe the board will look elsewhere because of that poor run. I'm not saying it's poor. Obviously, he's not lost. I think they've not lost in 5. They've they've drawn all of the last 4 or 5 games. But do you think that might put the board off a little bit?
I think it's not the case of. I think if they saw him as the number 1 target, I think they would forget about the compensation, just pay for it. Like they did it with Brendan a few years back. They wanted him as he was the undisputed number 1 target for them that they always had in mind for years. They've had Potter in mind for years. I think even when Brendan was released, they initially was just he's on the radar. They wanted him initially when we went down. So he would have been on the mind. So I think they would probably just go for him. But with Corberán, I think Ant sort of mentioned it at the time, and I was really sort of championship manager. But the more I sort of looked into it, and knowing his time at Huddersfield as well, he knows how to work with players at a very sort of with a very sort of small squad value. and then build them up and to really get the most out of it in terms of defensive solidity, a really good pressing style, making the most of chances from any sort of like scenario. So and it's sort of entertaining football. West Brom were doing well. I think they kind of slowed down a bit, but still they're kind of up there in and around playoffs. So he'd be a good fit. It would be I think with Potter being out of work for so long, you're kind of unsure, being like, okay, what's his motives here?
Yeah.
Or if he would have took it, then I'd be like, okay, he's ready to step back into management. This kind of makes sense after the break from Chelsea. But the longer it goes on, the more you kind of question it in terms of what's his approach into if he were to come into Leicester and how he would settle the team. So.
I was going to say, first of all, to address this comment, another Baldy at the club, why not? We may as well. But Anil, again, we've spoken about a few managers there. Leicester lad says Terzic. I don't think he would come to Leicester, if I'm honest. I know he's out of a job, but
why not?
Portman to come to Leicester? I don't know. I can't see it, mate.
You wouldn't have thought Oliver Glasner would have gone to Crystal Palace, and he did. What I'll say is, rather than give it a suggestion, I will just say that, do you know who's top of the championship at the moment?
Sunderland?
It's Sunderland. Sunderland appointed a guy called Rajili Breeze. And the funny thing is he was their 7th choice manager. They were desperate. They were interviewing everyone. Everyone kept saying, no. And when he was appointed, everyone, even the Sunderland fans, who's this, pound shop Will Still, who's the one that they really wanted? Who's going to turn up? And yeah, he's totally transformed that team. They're not only top, I think they're 3 points clear. They've got the best record in the division. So I think, the thing that I really liked when we appointed Enzo Maresca is I always thought, even if it goes wrong, I think it's the type of appointment that Leicester should be making. It's the same as the players. The players that I get excited about is when you sign some kind of say Bilal El Khanous. That is a super exciting signing for me. He might turn out to be a bad signing like Daka or Samario unless they're going to redeem themselves. But those signings, I still think I can see the logic in trying to go there because they're the ones that can end up being sold for a huge amount of money and becoming a cult icon type thing. So that's why I was really in favor of Maresca, or if we'd have got Kieran McKenna. You want to see someone who has got something to do. They got new ideas, and maybe they could become the next big thing. Maybe they won't, but that's why the Cooper was always the irksome to us. And I think that's the real reason people wanted Corberán. Corberán could have ended up being a worse manager, but he could have ended up being wow, a phenomenal manager. And that was the upside that was exciting. And with Leicester City, we dared to dream. We dreamt once, and it was the best dream we've ever had. I wish we never had to wake up from that dream. So there you go. If I was going to go for a saucy one, just quickly, then I'll give you one suggestion. Yeah. I want to see chat's opinion on this. It's the Girona manager, Michel. So they got to the Champions League this year, and he's part of the City group. And you're saying, oh no, you're mental. He'll never come here, right? Girona are not having the best season now because all their players got stolen, right? And if they want him to take over at Manchester City, do you know what? Why not go to the Premier League, learn your trade there for a few seasons, and then you could take over then. And he plays that sort of football. So you think it's crazy, but like I say, Oliver Glasner going to Crystal Palace.
Does he need to come to Leicester first? Maybe he's already lined up for the Man City job. You never know. He might already. How are they doing in the league this season? Any idea? I haven't seen.
Mid-table. I'm not too sure.
Mid-table, is it? And I'm guessing they're getting absolutely smashed in the Champions League, are they as well? Or not?
Yeah, it's not been anywhere as good as last season, but you got to remember that they had one. They're 12th in the regular table. I'll see Champions League in a moment, but it's classic of here's a team that did really well, so let's just sign all their best players and give them one player back in return. He's nowhere near as good, so
Yeah, because Savio went Man City, didn't he? Savio from
Dobbvik went to Roma and a few others. They lost quite a few of their top players.
So yeah, obviously, I don't want to. We won't speculate too much on the manager's future. I think it's, as unfair as we have. Well, some of us have been about him on this channel and lots of other channels. We'll respect that he is still the manager. It was just a bit of speculation. Going around the panel for score predictions for the Man United game. What are we thinking? How actually no. Before tell me how you think the game's going to go. How you think it's going to play out, and give me a score prediction at the end. Go on, Ant.
I think it'll be a fairly even game, and I think we'll be in it for most of the game. But I think United will probably nick it right at the end, so I'm going to go 2-1 United.
Nice. Well, not nice, but you know what I mean. Ragsy, go on, mate. Get your turtleneck on, mate, and
No, it's
I mean,
not turtleneck. I'm representing the bad for a change. Never
no,
seen
you
it
need to go get your
this way.
turtleneck.
Yeah, there you go. A badge in it. That's like, I think we'll tease United a little bit with we can actually play consistent and we can actually have a style and do all the nice things, like probably in the first half, and give them a bit of a scare. Then there'll be a bit of reaction from United at half time, and then we'll probably fail to turn up or something, just because I think we're only due a good 45 minutes, so probably 3-1 United.
3-1 United. Anil, I mean, you saw a comment earlier about, was it a 1-1 draw? Is that what you're going with, or are you going for a different scoreline?
No, I'm going for 1-1. How the game will go, I actually think we'll have more possession and look quite good, but they'll just score off either something jammy or some wonder goal. But I think because we scored in every game this season, I think, look, even in the cup, they battered us. We scored 2 and could have scored more. So I think we will get a goal. So I think we might get a draw. Maybe they'll shade it 2-1, but why not? I'm going to be positive for this one. It's the game after this one that I'm a bit more worried about. But this one, I think we'll get something out of 1-1.
Well, we'll have 2 weeks, won't we, to prepare ourselves for that one. I mean, another international break is just a bit of a joke. But is that the last one? That's the last one this year, isn't it? I believe
it is. And then to be fair, though, after that, you start getting to the point in early December where you get a Premier League game every 3 days. And that really changes the dynamic, because all of a sudden, players that you haven't seen in ages, you have to play them because people are literally walking on wounded. And you know what, though? That's one of the things that might work in our favour, because we do have a half decent squad compared to the other teams that are in the relegation battle. Because your Ipswich and your Southampton, if Ipswich, if Delap is out injured or something like that, that's a huge chunk of their team, right? Whereas for us, that we've even got Daka injured. I mean, some people might think that's a good thing, but you know what I mean? You've got other players that could step in. So on paper, we should be able to keep picking up points at a fairly consistent rate. That's all we need to do, right? Of course, it'd be amazing if we could go on some 3 or 4 winning game streak, but point per game probably sees us stay up.
Yeah. I'm going to go for a 1-1 as well. Yeah, why not? I'll go for a 1-1. Yeah.
I love this comment from Rye, by the way.
Oh.
Nice and positive. Only the 601 days left on Bobby Reid's contract. Yeah.
Question though, is Daka's about back now, isn't he? Or is he not? I saw he was
training. So
he's training. Yeah.
Could he make the? No, I'll probably wait now till the.
He could have 10 or 20 minutes. I'd actually expect that to happen, to be honest. Again, a good team for him to play against, because if they're pushing up, that space in behind, fast player.
Do we? Let's end on this. Do we all expect? I'll come to you first, Dan. Do you expect Daka once Daka is at 100%? Do you think he will start? Because that was definitely, I think, what Cooper was seeming. He was wanting to do in pre-season before he got injured. So, do you think we might see Daka start games, or do you think he will stick with Vards?
He'll have to start a few, because, like you said about December, there's no way Vardy's playing every 3 games. But right up until he got injured, in pre-season, he seemed like Daka was going to be the main man. So there's no way I think he can go from that to absolutely not starting him at all. So, yeah, I think we will see him a bit.
I mean, look, this is what we've got. This is already, we're looking ahead now, because the next few months we are going to be back to, it's going to happen in it. Daka slander every week. It's just one of them things that has happened, unfortunately, with Leicester over the last couple of years. I mean, it's not really our fault. He has been absolutely pony, but apart from a small period in the Championship. But Ragsy, Daka, what do you think? What's going to happen to him?
Look, when it comes to Daka, I think people, they kind of got this unrealistic expectation on the striker because of what Jamie brought for us.
I don't know.
Hang on. It's just because you got to think with Daka, what I will sort of defend him on is, I think people sit here and go okay, he's got to be scoring every single game, which is just a completely unrealistic target. And actually, when you look at the 2 seasons in the Premier League before we got relegated, his goals to minutes ratio was up there with some of the best. And he was clinical. He was, when you give the chances there. What I will criticize him on, though, is perception of when the chance is going to come, and having the movement for it. and just not really sort of sensing like where that anticipation for where he needs to sort of make the run. And then it all sort of came to fruition like last season when he just got in the rut. He just simply couldn't get himself out of it. It was just, he couldn't even hit a barn door. It was in the second half of the championship last season. So I do understand it. Like, you know, it's simply not good enough. He has to be doing a lot more. Maybe in the Premier League, he might get a bit more space. I am clutching at straws here, but you know, it could happen. It could happen. You do see bounce backs. We're seeing it from Samari, maybe. So why not him as well? Just he's here for this season. Just if he is in the fold, at least he can bring some good pressing and stuff. But I think it'll be a case until like if Jamie can't play, because I think he's like, look, really, one sort of positive is that he is sort of keeping himself fit again and going again every single week and managing to last 90 minutes. So if we can keep that up, that'd be a good thing. And then Daka's in the background as well.
Anil, is Ragsy being a bit too generous to Daka there? He kind of he avoided calling him shit, which I think he is. But you know, what do you make to him?
I still think you got to give him a chance. It's funny. Like I personally think Jamie Vardy's been pretty good this season, right? Like surprisingly so. Like everyone was saying, because when we got relegated last time round, he looked to me at times like he was finished, which sounds a bit harsh, but it did look like he'd maybe completely run out of steam. But whatever they're putting in the Red Bull these days, he's playing pretty good. It's interesting though. I've got on my other screen, I've got his stats for this season, and they actually look appalling. But I'm not really sure that's Vardy's fault. I'll tell you what the interesting thing is. In terms of just shots, taking shots is in the bottom 1% for all forwards in the Premier League, right? Now that's not necessarily his fault. That could be saying we're not giving him service, which is kind of true because I think his all-round game is quite good, and he still scored a lot of goals even though he's not having many shots. But I don't know. Maybe what you could say is that having someone who's just got more energy, can get about and run, would actually be better for the team overall. It might improve the performance of the other front four, and then Vardy can come on later and he could do a bit better. Like I do think, you know, when we played the Enzo style system, the thing about it is that it's a system. So actually, sometimes someone who isn't, you know, everyone always sees Love say, oh, indeed, he's not an attacking midfielder. But in that system, he worked quite well. When he came out of the team, he definitely performed worse, right? So there's something to be said there. So look, I definitely think he'll get game time. Is he good or not? We'll have to see. But I mean, for example, who thinks he'll get more goals than Vardy come the end of the season? I know that he's got a bit of an unfair advantage in that he's starting with less games. But even if he played all the games between now and when he came back in, do you think he would score as many as Vardy? Because I don't. That's the thing. It's just Vardy's got that clinical, cool finishing, and also he's got something that I feel Daka hasn't got, which is that he sometimes can score a goal out of nowhere. You know, just like a XG of 0.01 and he'll bang it in, whereas Daka is not really like that. But it's a problem. We've got to face it sometimes. Vardy ain't going to be here forever, so we've got to give him some game time, I think. Oh, you're muted, Locke.
Sorry. Daka would have an XG of 1 and put it over the bar. But look, I get it, because I think it's only fair. Maybe every player should be able to have another chance under a new manager. Do you get what I mean? Like, you know, when a new manager comes in, as football fans, you want to have hope that this new manager will get the best out of this player that has struggled. But I don't know. I can't see it. And somebody else, I think, said about selling him to invest in Buonanotte. I'm not sure we're going to get much. Isn't his contract up as well at the end of the season, Daka? This is his last year, isn't it? Or is it next year?
I think he'd have one more year left after this one.
One more year. So there we go. Eduardo Daka, that is the last question. I want one-word answers. One-word answers. Ant. Eduardo Daka.
Daka.
Ragsy.
Daka.
Anil.
Daka.
Yeah, it's got to be Daka. Because I mean, Edward ain't scored a goal. I'm not saying he won't be like I don't know, an addition to the overall squad. I just don't think he's good enough. So, Chester says Slimani. Right, let's end it there. Ant, where can people find you, mate? What have you got coming up?
Ant's Leicester fan channel, so match previews, home and away match day vlogs, and podcasts. So make sure to go and check it out.
Absolutely. Ragsy, what's coming up on FOSS Hub or Talk Leicester City?
Yeah, so we'll do a preview stream for the United game this weekend on Talk Leicester City. That's on playback, and Matchday Live on FOSS Hub's playback as well on Sunday for the game. So yeah, come and check us out. And
lovely stuff. I did see this as well actually, but today he's joined with is it Wasserman, where everyone who plays or manages Leicester City seems to be. So I was going to say, Anil, what's coming up on for Fox 8 TV, mate? That's what I was going to ask you, but obviously it's yeah. What have we got coming out tomorrow morning, mate?
What's coming up on Blue Tinted Glass? We've got the match preview that's coming out tomorrow. We're going to look at the tactics. Can we hurt Manchester United? We'll try and find a way. We'll see if we can actually pull it off in the game or not, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So yeah, that's coming out tomorrow. And then Saturday, we will have like a Team Predict live stream in the evening, probably 7 o'clock. And then, of course, Sunday, we have Match Day Live. We're starting a bit earlier in a separate live this week at 12:45, reactions to team news, and then we'll obviously be on for 1:45 to start the actual Match Day Live, and then of course the instant match reaction afterwards. Thank you, lads. Thanks for joining. Much appreciated. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.